My name is Dr. Ebenezer Amankwaa. I am a senior lecturer at University of Ghana in the Department of Geography and Resource Development. I am an urban geographer. I have research interest in infrastructure, informality, livelihoods, youth mobility, environmental sustainability, urban health, and more recently, climate change, adaptation, and education. And so I have a project in schools, basic schools, where we are monitoring the temperatures in the classroom and how it affects teaching and learning. That's my recent project here in Ghana. Well, so when we were awarded the fellowship, we were all curious because we had heard a lot about ASLP, Africa Science Leadership Program, and we were very excited to be part. But my expectations before joining were to be part of a crop of African scientists who, through their African science, are able to contribute to the complex wicked problems that we face in the African continent. But it's we've been in other fellowships where you're either paired and then you think about problems, and so we thought that was going to be the usual thing. And then we go through some trainings and develop our leadership skills. But it wasn't so. I mean, I was so fascinated about the organic nature of how everything panned out. So when we started, I remember the first day we met, we all committed to whatever rules and regulations that were going to guide the 1 week program that we were going to have, without even knowing that we were setting out our own rules. And why do I say so? I remember, the opening remarks were likes about, scientific programs, workshops, conferences, and we were all happy, tabling all of that. Then in the end, it turned out to be that these are also going to be the likes and dislikes of the 1 week ASLP program. And for me, that was very organic. It was very self-owned, because these are issues that we all said we liked and we didn't like. And those were the binding rules of engagement for our stay. So I would say, yes, that was even how the whole program started, was very organic in that sense. And then, yeah, there were other, the mode of delivery, that it wasn't just a facilitator coming to talk to you throughout the day. It was also about a bottom-up approach where fellows were made to come up with their own ideas and then contribute to the program. The ASLP Fellowship seeks to develop thought leadership, team collaboration, and skills development among early and middle career researchers in the African continent, so that they're able to contribute to the wicked complex problems that we face. And so what we did was that, yes, we went through a lot of trainings, a lot of leadership sessions, a lot of research skills development trainings that were aimed at fostering that collaboration, aimed at identifying ourselves to be able to apply the knowledge we have in whichever endeavor we found ourselves. So for me, it was the key thing for me was the fact that we were made to understand that we are first who we are before knowing the science we do. So our identity comes first, our ingenuity comes first, our talents, our ideas come first. They make who we are before the science we do. And that was a reflective moment for me to do a stock taking of my life, who I am, and how I can bring some of these passions I have and commitment, zeal to the research I do. And that was a starting moment for me as a researcher, that when even we introduce ourselves at meetings, yes, we tend to hammer so much on the science we do, but we are first who we are. And so even there are sessions that we have to draw ourselves, or your partner will draw you and then try to give some attributes to you. They were reflective moments for us to rethink through who we are as individuals and the kind of science that we do. So that was a key thing. The other thing was the whole thought process of the ASLP. We're introduced to new approaches, new terminologies, new ways of seeing and doing. And I remember there was a common term that we always use: how might we? Right. And that is a game changer and has been a game changer for the science. I mean, most of the fellows do. So as researchers, I think we've been conditioned in a way to be, attacking. Like we have to, police the gates. It's an academic community, and so the first thing is that you attack people's work, you criticize people's work. But then, can we reflect and then start thinking of the pluses of people's work, the positives? Can we see from those lenses before thinking of other ways that we might correct the concerns we may have about their work? And so that was also another key thing about the ASLP experience, that we need to always welcome people, give constructive comments, and even before that, let's make people feel welcome. Let's appreciate what they know and have before we move on to think of the concerns and the constructive criticisms that we give them. And I think there was also the point of we developing using the skills that we've learned to develop or to contribute to the research we do. And so we have teams, and my team was the excellent leadership team or group. And we've also had some collaborative engagement, myself and colleague in Nigeria, and then also in Kenya. There were three of us in the group, and we've had collaborations at different levels to spearhead some of the activities and things that we learned from ASLP. I mean, every day was a surprise, and every session was very exciting. It starts with the curiosity. You don't know what is going to happen. You go, every day has different setup. The tables have been set up differently. You're encouraged to sit with different people you've not, really sat with throughout the program, and you have different items to, think through what you are doing. So the exciting moments, I mean, I can't, pinpoint or pick and choose. Every day was exciting. Every session was exciting. From the start of the day where you sit, the things you have to work with, the people you meet were all exciting. And I think it is very encouraging that we continue with such ways of approaching some of these fellowships that we do, because it is through that we are able to come up with a lot of the new things, new ways of doing things. I recall in one of the sessions we were given some, some items to build whatever, we could think of. And yeah, we ended up, I think, building something like an astronaut in space or something. And even for us to agree on what to do with the things we had was a learning process for me, right? How people see things differently. And in the end, I mean, yeah, you end up with something that you can speak to and you can share, even though it may not really be what you intended. I mean, that is what research is about. At times we start research with our own goals, but we go to the field, once we open up, and once we receive new ideas and criticisms and flow along with things that are happening, we come up with some nice, fantastic ideas that we never thought of. And yeah, and I think the the garden experience was also key. So there are times that we go out, sit in the garden, and then we are made to do some assignments. There was one of the sessions that we didn't know what we were supposed to do. In fact, we were given some set of questions. Yeah, and it took us like 5 minutes. We had about 15 minutes. It took us like a third of the time figuring out what we had to do. And the beauty of research, science, new ideas, new ways of doing things as you work with people always come up. And so we're able to present something that, yes, people were excited about. That is the beauty of it. So I think throughout this ASLP program, you realize that nothing is a mistake. And the more you push yourself, that is when you come out of your comfort zone and think outside the box and then make inventions and innovations for the African continent. I was very enthused. Most fellows were very excited with the new knowledge that we gained, and we were all thinking of how to apply it and even use it to transform the institutions that we find ourselves. But change does not happen overnight. And so, yeah, we've been trying personally in my classes that I teach. I try to use some of the principles that we learned from the ASLP. The fact that, first of all, we need to allow people to make their voices heard. We don't start from your viewpoint, throw out the issue, hear the voices. Let's first diverge from the different perspectives. And then based on that, let's converge with the commonalities that we have and then see how we can deal with the differences. And so in terms of my teaching, that is very key. Um, and then even how to also criticize students in a more constructive manner during our seminar presentations, our graduate students, postgraduate students. We try to ensure that we give them the space that they feel comfortable, they feel confident to express themselves, and then we find a better way of punching the holes and finding ways of giving constructive criticisms that can improve their work. At the institutional level, the university has launched what they call the Leadership Academy, and that is in a way to democratize the university's new strategic plan. And leadership is very key. So there's a whole academy that has been set up. They are still trying to roll out the plan, how they will do it at the different schools, colleges, and so on and so forth. And I believe that at my department level, I'll be able to influence this Leadership Academy of the university based on some of the things that we learned from ASLP. And through that, I'm sure we can gradually shape leadership on the African continent. Yeah. An African science leader, I think, is the independent scientist who is able to do independent research and is able to tailor the science they do to the realities on the African continent. We have a lot of collaborations in Europe, in the UK, in America, and most often we are boxed because funding comes from the West, and then we are made to fit in and then do science. But I think if we should get good funding, African researchers should be able to come up with independent research areas that they think are pertinent and critical to the issues on the African continent. And once we do that, we can now lead the research space in terms of setting the agenda on some of the key things that we think we need to research into. Secondly, once we're able to establish that research agenda, the other thing that the African scientist is supposed to do is to also push the frontiers when it comes to the publication outlets. A lot of the narratives about Africa have been championed from the Western perspective. And so we see a lot of, so many things that, if we had the voice, if we had the funding, if we had that independence in terms of the research that we do, then we should start, interrogating and pushing those narratives. to let it reflect the African situation. Look, I always say that Africans, we have the best minds, right? We have people who are doing excellent research, but are we pushing it in the right outlets that are supposed to change the status quo in terms of how we have been, categorized over the years? If we're able to lead the science in terms of the independence, in terms of the setting up of the research agenda, and we're also able to push the outlets within which we publish this science, right, contesting the narratives from the African perspective, I think that is when we will say that yes, we are getting to a position where African scientists are leading the charge. And let me add that that is not to say that African scientists don't need collaborations. We do, but I'm saying that we need to set the pace. We need to set the agenda. We shouldn't wait for Western collaborators to lead the research space. They may come with their own research agenda, but we are in Africa and we know what the issues are, and so we should be able to lead that process. Africans are known to be adaptable. Over the years, we have been able to adapt to situations. We've been able to build resilience against so many shocks the African continent has been bedeviled with. And so I will say that let's keeping on. Let's do the African science the African way, using our own indigenous knowledge, using our own experiences. Let's amplify our voices where they matter. Let's keep pushing the scientific boundaries beyond just the research we do and break into the policy spaces, link up with industry players, and through that, let's come up with innovative ideas and solutions that are useful for not just researchers, but also for policymakers and decision makers so that they can use that to transform their society. Africa is Africa is what we have, and Africa is who we are. Let's be proud of ourselves and continue making, the inroads into different spaces wherever we find ourselves. I think that is what I would say as ASLP celebrates its 10 years anniversary. Kudos to ASLP. Through this fellowship, I've been able to identify myself better. I've gone through a lot of reflective moments as a researcher through the new ideas that we got from the training last year, through the new networks that I built, and through some of the collaborations that we are having. I believe we are going to do more for African science. ASLP is a nurturing space. It's an incubator where we nurture minds and grow scientific solutions